Good morning. I'm Saini at the University of Canberra, and I'm speaking with Michelle Grattan in our weekly conversation about politics in Australia. Good morning, Michelle.
Hello, Deep.
Michelle, very sad and tragic events in Christchurch last Friday, and because the gunman was an Australian, that has triggered quite a debate in Australia, particularly about the tone of speech by politicians in this country and some of the hate speech that has been going on. Scott Morrison has intervened. He has called for staying away from tribalism. Do you think that such a tragic event, and then all the talk that has gone on about Australia's, the nature of debate in Australia on these issues, is going to change the political rhetoric in this country?
It's very hard to say. I think the politicians mean what they say at the moment, but the problem always is that after the event recedes somewhat into the past, that they go back to old habits, that in the heat of debates they are not careful. But there's no doubt this has been a massive event in terms of how we see the political debate about inclusion, about how the Muslim community is portrayed, and the whole importance of getting the tone right, both from the politicians and indeed in the wider community and media debates.
Michelle, speaking about the political debates and the rhetoric, in the aftermath of this tragic incident, Turkish president made some comments that, as reported in the press, they came across as pretty incendiary towards Australians. And now this happens just ahead of the ANZAC Day. That's an important event for Australia, and a lot of Australians head to Turkey. The Prime Minister was quite disturbed by these comments, and he called in the Turkish ambassador, and he got some dressing down from the Prime Minister. Since then, the heat has settled down a little bit, but has it settled down enough for Australians to feel comfortable going to Gallipoli for ANZAC commemorations?
The Turkish president's remarks were in the context of his electioneering, so they were certainly very strong, and they appeared to be threatening to Australians and New Zealanders. But as you say, things have calmed down. His office explained the context, made it clear that they weren't to be seen as a threat to visitors. And of course, we have to put Scott Morrison's reaction in the context of how important to Australians the ANZAC narrative is in our history, in the way we see ourselves, in the definition of the nation. In terms of the safety of people going for the commemoration, well, Turkey is quite a dangerous place anyway, and Foreign Affairs has a travel warning out about it, saying you have to be careful. But I think, given that this whole exchange has now been calmed down, that people shouldn't feel that all that has made it less safe for them to go. But they should be cautious anyway.
Back here at home, somewhat related to these events, perhaps, or at least related to the nature of these events, government has announced a new immigration policy where the number of immigrants will be cut down, and there is a focus on moving immigrants to regional Australia. Is this a coincidence? Is this really an attempt to manage the congestion in our big cities, as the government says, or is there an element of appeasing the Conservatives within the party?
The immigration debate has been running quite hot for a long time, and the government has had consultations with states and other stakeholders and recrafted its immigration policy to a degree as a result. But we should put this in context. The cap for immigration, for migration, was 190,000 a year. But the current actual level, the intake, has been around 160,000. Now, what the government has done is reduce the cap to the actual level. And that is a significant change in terms of signals, but it actually is not a great deal of change in terms of what's actually happening. I think that it's taking a middle course in a way that the right in politics would like immigration to come down a lot more, and that pressure has been held off. So there's a gesture, but not one that means that our migrant intake would be squeezed to the extent that it would have a negative economic benefit. Because remember, migrants are very important for our economy, for growth, for filling positions that Australians are not available for one reason or another. We have an ageing population. Migrants are younger when they come in and therefore boost the workforce in important ways. As for the regional focus, well, that's about the so-called congestion busting. I don't think it'll make much difference to the cities, but it will send a few more people to country areas and to the smaller cities too, because a city like Adelaide, for example, is classified as regional for this purpose.
So in essence, as far as the numbers are concerned, nothing changes in effect, although it may change in perception.
Not a lot changes in effect, but it has been pointed out by the experts in this area that if you lower the cap, even if that's the current actual level, you are sending signals abroad, and you might in fact end up with fewer people than we are getting at the moment.
Let's go to our neighbouring state, New South Wales. The coming weekend is the election weekend, and the polls are indicating a very, very close race. Such a close race, whoever wins now, do you think that has implications for the upcoming federal vote?
I think the implications are particularly in terms of morale and perception. There will be some federal factors in the result. The New South Wales government is expected to take a bit of a hit for the federal government, as it were. So if the result's bad for the coalition government there, then it worsens the federal coalition's position. If it's not as bad as it might have been, then the feds will take some heart from that. So the morale effect is the big one.
So we'll have something new and interesting to discuss next Friday when we meet.
We will indeed.
All right. Well, in the meantime, Michelle, you have a nice weekend, and we'll talk next Friday again.
Thanks, Steve.